In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And when you hear the word from God, it will make you God. Chapter 18, line 15, section 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. And if he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. The NIV version is a little more clearer. A brother who sins against you. If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault, just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over. But if he will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, then treat him as you would a pagan or a tax collector. So therefore, he says, in case if your brother shall trespass against you, do something wrong or wicked against you, and then go and tell him his fault. Between thee and him alone, first try to explain it to him, point it out to him. Because when you live in the world, you are bound to meet and come across all types of humanity. It matters not where you are placed, whether you are living in the outside normal world, the society, or whether you are in a cloister, you will have the same problem. Same problem is everywhere. So in all situations, life situations, you are going to have all three, you are going to meet and invariably interact, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. Circumstances in your life will make you interact with the good, the bad and the wicked. Maybe it may be for your education in some form or the other. But you will be brought into interaction with all three during the course of your life. Whether you are living in the normal outside world, or whether you are living in a monastic setup, whatever it is, it's bound to happen. So therefore he says, in case somebody wrongs wrongs against you, then does something bad and wicked, because that is their nature. The wicked man will always do something bad and wicked, and with whomever he comes in contact with, he is bound to show his nasty, wicked disposition sooner or later. But you too also, whenever you find somebody perceiving or behaving or acting with you in an incorrect manner, at that very moment itself, be very cautious of this person and keep him at a distance. Do not allow him to come near. So the signs and symptoms will begin to manifest sooner or later. And the moment you discern and discover that, you should have the good wisdom and the strength to keep him at bay at a distance. Otherwise, sooner or later, this person will cause problems with you in some form or the other and exhibit his wicked disposition, because that's his nature. It's like if a person were to live in a place, in a cave, shall we say, with a snake, though things may be all right for some time, but all of a sudden you never know, the snake can bite you. That's his nature. That's his nature. So here also, it's the same situation. Same situation. You don't take it for granted. So therefore he says, in case such a situation happens, then go and meet him and explain his fault, explain the situation. If he still does not accept it, then take another person, a person or two, preferably two persons, and as a witness discuss the matter with him. And if he still does not relent, it's very difficult for these people to relent. A good man always will immediately accept his error and acknowledge it, but disreputable people do not, because that is part of their nature. So then, in case he does not, even in the presence of two witnesses, then he says, you go to the authorities, to the council. Because in the ancient days, they always had a village council. Though the word church is used here, it does not refer to the church, because there was no church at that time, at the time of Jesus. So there was only synagogues. The meeting synagogue was there, and the temple, it was also called as the temple. So it was more the council. The synagogue is also a place is a council meeting. It's a meeting house. So, or else it could be a council where the elders gather. A council place. So go there and explain the matter to them. Try to get him along and explain the matter and discuss the matter. In case he does not still relent his ways, then he says, then leave him alone and leave him alone. Let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. That is to say, let him alone. Keep him at a distance, like people keep a tax collector or a heathen at a distance. So also, because no one is very, very keen to go and meet a tax collector. So therefore, keep him at a distance. Then he says, in 18, verily I say unto you, whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. That is to say, whatever you do on planet earth, whatever you say, it is that which will be taken and accounted for in heaven. So whatever you do here is what you will receive there. You shall be bound in heaven. So it's a law of life, he said. And whatever you shall lose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. In case if you do not obtain your spiritual goods on planet earth, then it is that which you will lose in heaven too. It is that which you will lose there too. If you do not get it, if you do not acquire a spiritual riches here, then you will not get it there. So what you obtain here, right, is what you will get there. And what you will not obtain here, you will also not obtain there. So here too also, if God is perfect, and it is said God is, that's one of the definitions of God. There are many definitions for God. God is love. God is perfect. God is always just. He's a just God. So all these expressions are used. If that be the case, then you too will have to be perfect here. You have to be a perfect individual, or a perfect man, or a perfect woman. Then only will you be eligible to attain to that perfected state called the God state. If you are just and righteous here, you will attain to the state of righteousness there. So, if you are correct in all what you are, and out of that virtue, will you obtain the supreme virtue there? So, that is what he says. Whatever you attain here, that only you will get there. And whatever you lose here, that means lose here means whatever you do not attain here, is what you are going to miss there. So the kingdom of heaven is to be perfected here. On planet earth itself, you have got to be perfect that state within yourself. Then only you will get it there. This is a very remarkable, ingenious statement with deep implications. Not that your salvation is later, right? Your salvation is right here, right here. So then, in 19 he says, again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that you shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. That is to say, if two of you agree on any matter on planet earth, then, and you shall ask the good Lord, then it shall be done for them of my Father. My Father may give you that. It shall be done for them, because we have asked. So it is said also, ask and it shall be given. So if two of you get together, not one but two, get together and ask whatever you want, who knows? No one can say how God will function. Perhaps He may relent, He may give you what you want. Which is so. Where two or more or three, where two or three are gathered together, 2, 3 or 4 or more are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. In case 2, 3 or more people get together and in my name gather, this is called the collective energy. Collective energy. So that is why in a collective setup, in the house of prayer, which could be a church, which could be a vihara, a Buddhist vihara, or a temple, or even a mosque, wherever you gather together, a group of people gather together to pray. So the good Lord says, I appear in their midst. So wherever there is a group gathering of people who want to get together and to pray, whether in their home or in the house of God. So when it is said house of God, means a prayer house. A prayer house. Like a church, a congregation in a church, or a gathering in a temple who have come there for worship. Or as it is said, so even in a mosque, if people gather together, wherever they gather together, then at that time, the good Lord says, I am in their midst. So that group energy is there, and the midst of that group energy, the good Lord has also come, will always be there, keeping a watch on all those people, a benevolent eye on all those people who are so gathered together in prayers. In prayers. So as we said, true prayers is the prayerful attitude, the prayerful state of mind, a prayerful state wherein you are silently aware of the presence of the divine. So this is prayers, true prayers. So there he says, the good Lord says, I am there because of the collective energy. So therefore, it is good to pray together. It's good. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me? And I forgive him? Till 7 times. So this Peter is always after Jesus, putting some question or the other. Then came Peter to him and said, if my brother offends against me, if my fellow's human, how many times should I forgive him? And he says 7 times. So Jesus saith unto him, I say not thee until 7 times. It is not 7 times, but until 70 times 7. 70 times 7. That means 747 times. What is 749 times? 749 times at least. So that means there is no limit to it. There is no limit to it. So you have to forgive him. The thing about forgiveness is forgive and forget. Forget about it. Forgive and forget. In fact, if you forget about it, you don't even have to forgive him. You have already forgiven him. See the whole thing. If you forget about it, somebody has done something wrong. If a dog barks at you, do you turn around and tell the dog, I forgive you? No, you forget about it and walk away. But if you were to bark back at the dog will be so shocked that in future whenever he sees you, he may not bark at you at all. He is so shocked. So therefore, you just forget about it. And in the world, people do so many wrongs. Right? And even your own family members, when you are young in the family, the family members are there. They forget and forget. It's a natural thing. Forget and forget. And the remarkable thing that I have seen, which has always amazed me, was two little boys. I have seen that quite frequently. Two little boys, hardly 6, 7, 8 years old, the fellows will be punching at each other, right? And the next moment their hands are around them. I can't understand that. Within 5 minutes the fellows are. There is no, they've forgotten it. It's remarkable. It has always amazed me. I've seen them. Now the fellows are really punching at each other. So therefore he says, no, just forget about it. You can't hold on to it. You can't hold a grudge against body. How long can you hold a grudge? Right? Sometimes for generations they hold a grudge. Yes, yes. So therefore he says, because when you hold a grudge, it eats you up, not the other person. It is sapping your energy and your peace of mind. So you have no grudge against anybody who commits an offense against thee. If a dog bites you, do you hold a grudge against the dog? Certainly not. Certainly not. You don't hold a grudge against the dog. You know that the fellow's nature is that. He can bite you at any time. That's his nature. If a tiger snaps at you, you don't hold a grudge against him. You don't. You know that is its function, its nature. So you understand this and just leave it. Then the next thing is, however much you do wrong at home as a little child, your parents, they overlook it. They don't hold a grudge or an anger at it. They just overlook it. What makes them overlook it? Their love and concern for you. And they also understand that it is your childish limitations which has made you to do these wrong things. So through understanding and love, it's just overlooked. So that's what he says. And therefore he continues about forgiveness. He's further continuing another parable about forgiveness. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, when he had looked into his accounts, he found that one was brought unto him which owed him 10,000 talents. There was one particular servant or employee of his who owed him 10,000 talents. But for as much as he did, he had not to pay. His Lord commanded him to be sold. Since he couldn't pay, the king commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment be to be made, because it was such a huge, hefty sum. But the servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I'll pay thee all. Kindly have mercy on me, and be patient. I will pay all what I owe unto you. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion. He was moved with compassion, and loosed him and forgave him the debt. And forgave him the debt, because it's all right. So you must have compassion. One must be not like the Shylock, the merchant of Venice. Yes, the Shylock the Jew. So one should not be like that. Just leave it alone. Just leave it. Let it go. Maximum. So therefore compassion is necessary. Compassion. And free him. And just, all right, forgave him his debt. Because he knew that this man cannot anymore pay it back. all right, you forgive your debt and forget about it. But then what did that same servant do? But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence, just a small amount. A fellow servant owed him, and he laid hands on him and took him by the throat and caught him by the collar of his neck, just only for a few pence, saying, "Pay me that thou owest." The same servant. And his fellow servants fell down, and his fellow servant fell down at his feet. And the fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, "Have patience with me, I will pay thee all." It's a small amount, I will try to pay you. But this fellow was relentless. And he would not relent, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So the servant who was forgiven by the king, but he didn't relent. He was without compassion and mercy. He put this fellow into prison for having not paid that small amount. So, but then when his other servants, fellow servants, saw what was done, they were very sorry. They were very sorry about this unjust act of this man, and came and told the king, their lord, all that was done. Then his lord, after that, he had called him and said unto him, and he called that servant whom he had forgiven and told him, "Thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me. Should not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? Even as I had pity on thee." And his Lord was wroth and delivered him to the tormentors till he should pay all that was due unto him. And he delivered him to jail until he pay all that he had to. So here the story is that you too, every person, it's not only monetary debt. It's not only monetary debt. So debt in various forms are there. Various forms are there. And when you tell somebody that you will do this for him, and if you do not do, you are in debt to that person, because you have promised him and he is expecting it. He is expecting it. If you tell somebody that I will give you this, and if you have not given that, then that person is expecting that you are in debt now. Until you give that, your own conscience will tell you, not anybody else, your own conscience will tell you, "Oh my gosh, I have not fulfilled my statement." Your conscience will tell you that you have erred there. In the same way also, there are many things which you are supposed to do, which everyone is supposed to do, and that becomes his bounden duty. And if you do not do that bounden duty of what you are supposed to do, then you are in debt of having not done what you are supposed to do. Right? And what is that? Your daily obligatory functions and duties which God has given you. So you err by that. And you are in debt. You err. So that is an error or a sin. Sin is acquired by two ways. One is by wrongdoings. You acquire sin. The other is by the non-performance of what you are supposed to do. By the omissions. So sometimes you do sins by commissions, by doing the wrong thing. Sometimes sin is also accumulated by omissions, which is your responsibility. So not going through your responsibility also by omissions. So you are in debt of not having done what you are supposed to do. So therefore, what do? Quite often, there are many things that you may have not done. So you ask God for your forgiveness, isn't it? You ask God. Even there are many wrong things which you have done. Then you ask God for your forgiveness. So here also the same thing. So you relent when others are in debt to you. You just forget about it. If the other person is not in a position to pay you, that debt you just forget it. So if you do that, God will also correspondingly clear you of your debt. That's what is mentioned. The implication of this is correspondingly God will. If you do not, but be like a Shylock, insisting on your debt, then God also will not relent in the matter. So that is why you often say, "Oh, good Lord, forgive our sins, our errors." So when you also forgive others of whatever debts they may owe you, you just forget about it, leave it alone. So likewise, shall my heavenly Father do also unto you. So he says, so likewise, if you forgive your debts, so likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you. He will also correspondingly forgive you your debts and your errors of commissions and omissions. But then, whenever you forgive from your hearts. If you forgive not from your heart, so only when you forgive from your heart will you forget about it. So if you do not forgive from your heart, then you will still harbor it. So therefore, forgive everyone from your heart. So from your hearts forgive, if you do not forgive every one of their trespasses. So this is a moral code, to forgive from your heart. That is, forgive and forget. Or you don't even have to forgive, just forget about it. That is even better. Just forget about it. It's not even forgive. There is no need to forgive. Just forget about it. So then, chapter 19. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these sayings, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan. And great multitudes followed him, and he healed them all. He healed them there. So wherever these multitudes came, he too also healed them wherever he went. The Pharisees also came unto him. They also came. They come to taunt him, tempting him and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Is it? No, they're all trying to, shall we say, entangle Jesus in something wrong, some wrong statement. So they are trying to put forward some funny questions by which they could trap him. So, tempting him and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? For every error that the woman does, is it correct to put away his wife? Of course. People are bound to do errors. The wife is bound to do some mistakes here and there. So is the husband too. The poor fellow is bound to do some mistakes here and there. So does it mean that every time you make a mistake, you have to put the person out? Either the man or the woman? doesn't make any sense. You just understand it, correct it, and the matter is over. So then Jesus answered and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? Have you not read that? Have you not read and heard that he, the Creator, who made man and woman, made them in the beginning as man and woman, made them male and female. He had made it for a purpose. He created them as male and female for a purpose. And made them male and female, and said, for this cause shall a man, being male and being female, he said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Because they made them separate as male and female, so that they can come together. Man and woman can come together. That was God's intention. God's intention. So when he said that, it's a very very remarkable thing. When you tell somebody not to do it, they will certainly do it. Right? But God's intention was to make them do it. So therefore he had to tell them not to do it, so that they will do it. So that is a way. That is a way of doing things, getting things done. Because otherwise, if they did not do it, there would not be a purpose. The human race cannot perpetuate itself. So it was a necessary act. It was something very necessary and inevitable too. It was not only necessary, inevitable. Right? Because, the positive and the negative magnets. When we were kids in school, we had these magnets, positive and the negative, and you bring them close, they immediately get bound, touch each other like a flash. You don't know how fast it is. You bring them close carefully, and the next moment, they get attracted to each other so fast. You can't stop it. So this is a natural law of attraction or magnetism. Law of magnetism, magnetic attraction, which exists between a man and a woman. Right? And the remarkable thing is, how does God bring them about together? Of course, he doesn't bring anybody from any Tom, Dick and Harry and another person, Margaret or Elizabeth or whatever it is from somewhere. He has already chosen them. So that is why it is said, there are two ways by which, two ways by which marriage, man and woman are brought together. The first way is, it is as it is said, marriages are made in heaven. Marriages are made in heaven. So which implies, and they are made in heaven, and they are solemnized on planet Earth in the presence of the elders. So when it says that marriages are made in heaven, it simply means that God has chosen the respective partners for each other. God himself has chosen. And when the time has come for the two people, man and woman, male and female, to come together in holy matrimony, then he brings them, he connects them up. He connects them up. He himself connects them up in some form or the other. So how does he connect them up? Either by bringing them into close proximity. But because of that unseen magnetism or which exists between the two, it's an unseen, mysterious force which God has put into them. And if they are meant to be as husband and wife, that mysterious force works and they fall in love. It's that mysterious force. You don't fall in love with any woman. Neither does a woman fall in love with any man. But for some mysterious reason, right? The poor chap was somewhere and the poor woman was somewhere. All of a sudden, they met somewhere, and out flashed that magnetism. That's a hidden magnetism which God has put. It's a hidden, mysterious force to bring them together. And the two fall in love and then subsequently get married. That's one way it takes place. So the other way is the two people are brought together by their elders. The elders arranged this marriage for them. In the olden days it was so. The good marriages in the olden days was so indeed, that the elders of the society, their parents and elders, brought the two people together and got them married in holy wedlock. So these were the two ways God brought them together, so that he says, and for this cause, for this purpose, for this union between the man and the woman to take place, shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. So that's a very natural thing. For this purpose, a man leaves his father and mother, leaves home and cleaves to his wife, so that they twain shall be made one flesh, so that they can become one. Because the reason is this: man by himself, living by himself, is a little incomplete. The woman living by herself is a little incomplete. So in order to complete their existence, they come together, because there between the two itself, there is also an energy, and unless that energy does not get fulfilled, they feel incomplete. So the woman feels incomplete, the man feels incomplete. And also, psychologically, a man or a woman find it difficult to live alone. So if they come together, there is a companionship and life becomes easier, so that they can mutually take care of each other and live as companions, and life can be a little better. Because the man is still not mature enough, nor the woman mature enough to remain single. If they were strong within, they can. But majority of the human race is not. Alright? So therefore, for emotional and psychological purposes, there is a process by marriage wherein they obtain, shall we say, fulfillment in existence, and it makes them feel a little whole. That is why they are brought together. So therefore, the institution of marriage is something sacred. It is something sacred and it is holy. And therefore he says, the twain shall be made one flesh and they shall come together. Sometimes certain people make some extra wise statements, very interesting statements. There was a famous movie star called as Zaza Gabor. She was married 9 times, and she was a well-known Hollywood movie star. And she was famous for her quotes. And one of the quotes was that a man is incomplete until marriage. A man is incomplete, and once he is married, he is finished. So that is very until marriage he is incomplete. When a man is incomplete until marriage, but after marriage he is finished. She finishes him off. So this is the fate. And now she knows it because she was married 9 times. So she knew it, but she didn't. But she knew it. So therefore, those are 2 statements. So at the end of the marriage, man feels, I have had enough. I have had enough. Enough is enough. Right? But at the beginning, the man is incomplete. He is incomplete. So that is why he says that they are brought together. They are brought together. It's a very natural thing that they are brought together. So, therefore they are no more twain, but one flesh, wherein they are not 2, but 1. So, a marriage is successful when they are. Then they function as one unit. They are not 2, but they are 1. It is like 2 halves being brought together. When 2 halves are brought together, they are whole, it becomes whole. So this is what the institution of marriage is all about. So therefore he says, they are but one flesh. But therefore God hath joined together. What God had joined together, let no man put asunder. Even during the Christian vow, marriage ceremony, this is stated. This is part of the marriage vow wherein the priest says that. Let no man come in between. Who are the 2 who have been brought together?
This whole thing is very controversial these days.
Yeah, leave these days alone, but we are talking of the reality of the things of situation. So, whom God had brought together, let no man step in and upset that arrangement. Upset that arrangement. As far as possible, if it is possible, if there is a problem, you should try to cement the problem, not break it. Not break it. Then, why was this institution of marriage so instituted? For this reason, so that the 2 can become one and go about conducting their life. Socrates, once a young man, went to Socrates, the wise Socrates, for advice on the virtue of getting married, because the young man was contemplating on getting married. So the good Socrates said, it is not a bad thing at all. For if you get a good wife, your marriage will be happy and comforting. Marriage will be happy and pleasant and comforting. But if you get a wife like mine, he said, you will end up as a philosopher. So therefore, either way, it is not a bad deal. Either you have worldly happiness, or you will end up as a philosopher. I know a young man who has such a problem, because apparently Socrates had a very difficult and impossible wife. Alright? So no wonder he was a philosopher. His wife was a little difficult. So having a difficult wife is a very difficult thing. So also the opposite too could be true. So anyhow, I know a man who has such a difficult wife. And from what I see is he has become a semi-philosopher. He is always in a philosophical attitude over life, because so his marriage has done him some good to become a philosopher, semi-philosopher. So therefore, it is either way, it is not a bad institution. But then, marriage is a sacred act. When one desires to marry, one must think carefully over the matter, and then it is a commitment. Marriage is a commitment. For the better, the marriage vows they have in the church, they are one of the best marriage vows ever mentioned. For the better or the worse. They have to use the word better because it's going to be for the worse at times. So they have to use that word for the better or the worse. Sometimes it is better, sometimes it is a living hell, whatever it is, for the better or the worse. In happiness and sorrow. Yes, in happiness sometimes it's a happy union. Sometimes there is a lot of sorrow in it, in happiness and sorrow. In health and sickness, of course, the persons will be healthy at times, and at times in sickness too, you have got to take care of the other person. That's what life is all about. So they have to accept this situation. Why? Because if he have been so married, if a man has been so married to a woman, and you know why he has been so married to her? Because that is his fate. It is his fate. If it was not your fate, you wouldn't have married her. Because you are fated to marry her. So accept your fate. So that is why sometimes in India, fellows the man knocks his head and tells, "You are my fate." When he can't deal with his wife anymore, he says, "You are my fate." He knocks on his head. But that's a fact. So you have got to put up with it and go through it. Because why is it that it's a lesson? It is a lesson. Marriage is, the institution of marriage is a lesson for man. It's an education for man. Right? And this institution of marriage makes a man stronger. Man or a woman, make them respectively stronger. By its process, by its family commitments, it makes them mutually stronger. So therefore it is an inevitable process for mankind. And this is so in all forms of creation too, we find the similar situation. So therefore, the marriage is something which is a sacred institution. And it should be respected. It should be respected. So he says, God has joined together. God has joined them together. Now remember that it is God who brought them together, because God meant them to be together, meant the two persons to be together. Therefore he brought them together. So it is God who chooses the partners, not you. And let not man put asunder. So therefore, let not any man put asunder. Then the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the priests, they say unto Jesus, so when Jesus said this, these were the sayings of Jesus. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. Then the Pharisees and the Sadducees they say unto him, why did then Moses command to give a writing of divorcement to put her away? Why did then Moses say that? To give a writing in commandment? Then Jesus said, he saith unto them, so Jesus says, Moses said that because of the hardness of your hearts. Because of the hardness, your heart suffered you to put away your wives. Because of your hardness, because you still lacked compassion, kindness, and you were still weak, therefore you wanted to put her away. Because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put your wives away. Therefore he told you, all right, put your wives away. But from the beginning, it was not so. But from the beginning, such a commandment, such a statement was not so. From the beginning. From the beginning when? From the beginning of the time of creation. From the beginning, when man was given these laws, it was not so. It was not to be so. It was not to be so. Then he continues and says, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication. So that is the only condition that he can put away his wife, except for fornication. In case she misbehaves, except it so. This only on that one condition, one clause, he shall put his wife away, except it for fornication, for her error. Right? That is the only instance where he can put away his wife, under no other circumstance. Under no other circumstance. And then this man, for other reasons, any other reason, if he puts her away and shall marry another woman, committeth adultery. This man commits adultery. If perchance the woman commits adultery and he puts her away, that is the only time that he can put her away. But if she does not, then he should not put her away and then marry another woman. If he does so, then he commits adultery with the other woman. Then, the next clause, whosoever marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. Then so once a woman has been put away for adultery, and if somebody else marries her, then that man commits adultery. Whosoever marrieth her which is put away, which is put out for adultery, he in turn commits adultery, this man. So this is an injunction given by, Jesus is saying this. So therefore marriage is a sacred institution. And it is very important to see that men and women, they realize, because the energies involved are so strong that they are unable to control themselves. All good sense and good value disappear because the force and the energy is so strong. They begin to violate all code of honor, all code of decency, they begin to violate. So man has to, because man has to live by certain rules and not live like an animal. He has to be trained and trained to conduct his life in a proper way. And if he does get into improper indulgences, he has to be given the guidelines. So these guidelines are being given here, so that man can conduct his life in a proper way. His disciples say unto him, if that be the case, if the case of the man be so with his wife, if it is so with a wife, it is not good to marry. It is not good to marry. That's what the disciples say. If this is such a difficult and hard situation, right? And some of his disciples must have already been married, so they knew, in first-hand experience what a problematical situation it is. It is problematical. You know why? I'll tell you. A woman does not think like a man, does she? The way she thinks is different. The way a man thinks is different. That's one factor. So, two different persons thinking, their manner of thinking is different. Then the next thing is, a man doesn't feel like a woman. The way he feels is different from the way a woman feels. Second factor. So there is already a difference. And the third factor is, their two respective energies are also different. They've got different energies. Different energies. So that's a third difference. So when you put these all put together, then when all these factors are brought together, you find something unique emerging out of it. The two of them put together are classic misfits. Classic misfits. Because the man thinks differently, the woman has got a different way of thinking, the man feels differently, the woman feels differently. Their energies operate in different ways. The woman is more house-oriented, home-oriented. The man is a jungle man. He wants to go out. So their energies and interests are all different. For two such people to come together and live together is a real wonder. It's a real wonder. The marriage situation is it's a jolly good game. It's a jolly good game indeed. How it operates. So it's a wonder. But nevertheless, it has been so done, it has been so worked out by God for the mutual education, of the two members of different character and different nature. Right? So that is why he says, that is why the disciples say, perhaps it is not good to marry. Perhaps that's what the disciples say. But he said unto them, no. Jesus says, no. All men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. All men cannot, that it is not good to marry, is not possible for all men. 99.9% insist on getting married, and women too. It's good for them. It is good for them. So he says, because of their energy, they have got a special energy operating. It demands its outlet, its release. It demands it. That energy wants its fulfillment. It wants its fulfillment. So therefore, it is not possible for all men. So, all men cannot receive this saying that it is not good to be married. Save they, only those, save they to whom it is given. Now remember the words, to whom it is given. This is something very, very important to understand. To whom is this capacity given, wherein they rise above this power of energy operating in them. That is to say, wherein dispassion, they rise above the impulse, the natural automatic human impulse, and rise up to a higher level, wherein this impulse subsides, the impulse to mate, that power, that energy subsides, that desire subsides, and for whom? It is given to a very few. It is given to a very few only. It's only they who can do it successfully, not others. It's meant only for a very few. And who are those very few to whom this is? They are so empowered to be free of this marriage institution. Who are those? They are the ones who have been baptized with the Holy Spirit. So it is those who have been baptized with the Holy Spirit will automatically rise above this human urge and impulse. So it is those to whom it is given. So that's why I use the word, save they to whom it is given. They are the only ones. Then, so it is these people who become hermits. They become hermits. Who have been baptized with the Holy Spirit, they are the ones generally who become, and they are the ones only who should become. Not only become, who should become and would become a hermit. Then he says, continues further. Jesus continues further. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb. Then there are some people who are so born as eunuchs. By birth they are like that. There are quite a few people like that. By birth itself they are like that. And it's all right for them as far as they are concerned. Right? This impulse is absent, is not there. Is not there. And it is okay for them. It is okay. It's all right for them. And they were so born. So one has to understand that. So these people do not feel like getting married at all. They don't feel like it. They don't want it. And there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men. So there are some, that is to say, in the king's palace, right? The kings in the olden days had wives and a harem. And it is so they made men eunuchs to take care of the harem. To take care of the harem women. So they were castrated and made by fellow man. Right? That's a second category. So that is why which were made eunuchs of men. Then the third one is, now he's talking of the third fellow. And there be eunuchs, which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. So that's a third category. So what is this? Those who want to consciously abstain from sex, because they want to attain to the kingdom of heaven. So they voluntarily, knowing the importance and the significance of being celibate, of being a brahmachari. Brahmachari means a celibate. Being a celibate, they feel the need and the importance of it because they aspire for the kingdom of heaven. So therefore, they abstain from indulgences. They abstain from indulgences. But, he uses the word but, he that is able to receive it, let him receive it. So he that is able to go through it, let him do it. So that person knows that yes, that he could successfully live a chaste life, abstaining himself from sexual indulgences. So let him do it. So that person, if he feels that he has the strength to do it, let him do it. But on the other hand, if a person feels that he doesn't have the capacity, it's better for him to get married and fulfill his impulses and urges. That will be better for him. Instead of trying to bottle it up. That will be better for him. That will be far better for him, because if he bottles up also, there is a energy which gets released, the psychological energy. So that is also not good if he bottles it up. Then have that lustful impulse. That doesn't work. Because psychologically he is getting himself drained. He is getting drained himself. Right? Rather than that, it would be better for him to go through the institution of marriage and finish it off. But the point is this: once he gets caught, he is really caught for the next so many decades. The man has to go through that. Right? So he has to now take a very strict decision. A very carefully thought of decision. Very carefully, which of the two is better for him? For a person to whom it has been given. That's what he said. Save to whom it is given. For them, for such a person, it's a walkover. There is no problem. To whom it has been given. He has the capacity, he has the natural capacity, he has risen above that impulse. That person has risen above that impulse, and therefore it is okay for him, naturally. But for others who don't have that capacity, special capacity given to them by God, now that will be a very difficult proposition. So he has to take a very carefully thought of decision before he ventures into this, because he wants to attain the kingdom of heaven, that is a godly state, and to obtain this godly state, he must have the strength that he can withstand this pressure. Now there is a way of dealing with this also. It's called sublimation, spiritual sublimation. Spiritual, you don't bottle it up. You don't bottle this impulse up, but you overcome this impulse by spiritual sublimation. Spiritual sublimation is that when you focus your attention on God and go through your meditative living, meditation and meditative living, right? This process will sublimate this impulse. Because now you are occupied in your spiritual practices, that automatically this impulse will begin to subside. So your energy is being sublimated. So this is the way to do it. If in case you do not go through your spiritual practices on a regular systematic basis, then the problem arises. Right? So this is called sublimation of energy. All right, then we will stop here and continue. Om Tat Sat.